Okay, so the reason I wanted to show you in more detail in an anatomy model why I am not sold on it only being your hamstring is the issue right now. Kind of what I was talking about the other day with nerve referral patterns and low back referral patterns. When you were describing the fact that you start to get pain in the back of the leg, and then when it worsens, it actually goes to your groin, and then when it worsens, it almost wraps around to the whole side of your hip. So typically when it's just a muscle strain, it's going to stay painful in that area of the muscle, and it might refer a couple other places. And I will put that up on the screen here in a minute for hamstrings, but I just wanted to show you why I'm kind of feeling the way I am about this. So you've got several heads to your hamstrings, okay? So these are them. They're all on the back side here. If we take off a layer and you see deeper than this top layer, you will also see that once we're under the hamstrings, you have your adductor muscle. Okay, so that also connects really high up here onto your ischial tuberosity, and it also attaches a little bit wider under your greater trochanter out here. But nothing wraps all the way to the side of your hip, from the front at least, as far as feeling it over there. Because once you get to stuff that's going to appear, that's quad, all of these things. So I just wanted to show you hamstrings. I wanted to show you attachment points, show you adductors, and kind of just give you a summary of my brainwave. So what you can look at is, go ahead and look at the left side of the screen over here. Now I'm going to put up referral patterns for the hamstrings. Now these are ones where referral patterns are debated a little bit, but what they do is they've kind of taken data from all over, and the most common referral patterns that they have found, they've collected. So we've got, in your hamstrings, they attach way up here on your sit bones, right? Your ischial tuberosities. So when I add them on, we got all our hamstrings here. So if you're looking at the other side of your screen though, typically where that hamstring referral pattern is going to go is either up into the buttock a little bit, might go down the leg some, but that doesn't really get into the groin. Okay, now we'll switch and we'll look at referral patterns for adductors. And those obviously are going to get more into the groin area. They might swing a little wide to the outside of the hip, but they don't go to the front of the hip. And then the other option that we can look at is glutamine. So we use this a ton in running. You use it in cycling, but not as much as max, but in running, you're using it a ton. Referral patterns there can wrap around, and they can go down the leg some, but none of them really fit the trifecta of what you're talking about. Not to say that it's not an injury to your hamstring, but the way that you injured it did not really sound super hamstring to me unless you have another prior history of hamstring issues. So what I wanted to show you next is if we take off the muscles, and we're just talking spinal referral patterns, okay? So if I've got you looking down here, this is L5, L4, L3, L2. Those are the most common areas you're going to hear about funky referral patterns. L1 is up here. You might hear a little bit, but usually it's L2 through 4, and then there's 5, S1 down here. When we are talking about where they go, what they supply, okay, so the major nerves you have in the back of the leg. Sciatic nerve goes down from your middle of your butt cheek, down the back of your hamstring, and it actually splits. Part of it goes towards the front, kind of outside part of your leg. Part of it goes straight down the back into your calf. It stems from L4-5 spinal nerve roots, okay? And it does stem a little bit from your sacral nerve roots, but generally it's L4-5 down in here, okay? And then if we look at the opposite side, we look at the front, your big femoral nerve right here, it stems from L2 through 4, okay? So the low back stems the biggest muscle groups, front and back, and then these all have little bitty branches, as you can see, that come off of it. So off your femoral, you can branch around to the outside part of the hip. You can branch in and have little parts that come towards the groin. And then if we really get into the nitty gritty, I mean, we can look at ones that span actually down into your groin, your inguinal nerve. It stems off at L1. So really everything sensation-wise is going to stem from the low back. So that's why I always take a huge account of the low back when there's some funky referral patterns going on. So what I want you to just kind of be aware of is, again, look at the left side of your screen. This is called Dermatome Patterns, and it's sensations that correlate with lumbar, low back referral patterns, okay? So when we are looking at just the lumbar referral patterns, okay? And we'll go ahead and I'll throw some skin on here so it looks a little bit more like a human. Ah, here we go. We'll just look at them on here. Scratch that on the other side. So I know this is a male model, obviously, but the referral patterns are the same. So if you look here, L1 is groin line. L2 is kind of groin line, but gets a little lower down. Let me zoom out here so we can see them all. L3 is going to wrap a little bit more to the inner knee. L4 starts going down. L5. So you were not saying you have a whole lot going on below the knee, which is excellent. Wanted to show you from the back where we've got L4, L5. They're down here getting into S1 coming down. But if you can just kind of see where when you're getting into these like L4, L5, these are not just laid in stone. Sometimes we'll experience L4, L5 that comes way more medially into the hamstrings, and then it can feel like it's running out here. And then L2, L3 can be a little bit more groin. So I just wanted you to be aware of everything that can possibly refer pain to these areas, and why I like to look more kind of bird's eye view than just looking at hamstring. So when you're saying things like mopping or really flaring up your hamstring, now when you are mopping, let's go back off of this and we'll get back down. When you're mopping, you're in more of a flexed forward pattern. So just hypothetically speaking, running through all possibilities, if it were to be something kind of like a bulging disc or pinched nerve or things like that, typically bending forward is going to irritate disky things a little bit more. And don't be worried when I say disky things. It is insanely common and they resolve with conservative treatment. But if you're bent forward a bunch, you are going to put tension on your hamstrings, because obviously when the pelvis goes forward, you end up tensioning where that attachment site is of the hamstrings, which is right up here on your ischial tuberosities. You bend forward, you're tensioning them. But you bend forward, you're also tensioning your sciatic nerve. You're also tensioning all the nerve system that's from the backside. So you've got a lot of options as far as what could be really tweaking this to get irritated. But I just wanted to give you a global look. Sorry, this is kind of long and in-depth, but I know you like to geek out a little bit, so I figured I'd show you everything my brain was kind of thinking of when you were listing off symptoms.